After 8 years of divorce, my ex-wife mocked me at our school reunion. Then the host revealed who I really was 25 years later, and Peter Rush still looks like a man who pours concrete for a living. Katie said it loudly enough for 3 nearby tables to hear. The laughter came quickly, not because her remark was especially clever, but because some people had already decided I was supposed to be the joke. I did not defend myself. I did not mention the company I own, the 40 students whose education I had funded, or the reason the entire reunion had not cost our classmates a single dollar. I simply placed my coffee spoon beside the cup and looked at the diamond on Katie's hand. The man standing next to her called himself Andy Davis. He claimed to manage millions in private investments, and he looked at my old steel watch as if its price could tell him everything he needed to know about me. He had no idea that my watch was not the most valuable thing in that ballroom. He also had no idea that my wife had recognized his face. Before the night was over, Katie would learn that the man she considered a failure had quietly rebuilt half the neighborhood where we grew up. 4 days later, the man she planned to marry would be arrested. And the strangest part was that I never came to the reunion looking for revenge. My name is Peter Rush. I was 43 years old that night. And this is the story of how one cruel joke exposed a successful life, uncovered a dangerous fraud, and taught me that the strongest victory is the one that leaves room for mercy. Before we begin, tell me in the comments where you are watching from. If you believe a person's real value is revealed by what they do when nobody is applauding, subscribe and stay with me. What happened in that ballroom was only the beginning. Part 1. The joke in the ballroom. I almost never entered the reunion. I sat in my truck outside the Regency Hotel in downtown Atlanta for 11 minutes. Watching former classmates walk through the revolving doors in expensive dresses and carefully fitted suits. At 43, I had negotiated contracts worth millions of dollars. I had stood in front of city committees, skeptical investors, and angry neighborhood groups. I had managed construction emergencies in which one wrong decision could endanger an entire crew. Yet I was afraid to walk into a hotel ballroom full of people who remembered me at 18. Memory has a strange authority if you allow it to. People who have not seen you in decades can look at your face and make you feel as though nothing has happened since graduation. My phone vibrated. It was a message from Angela Brooks. I know you were in the parking lot. Get inside. I smiled despite myself. Angela had known me since 7th grade. She was one of those friends who understood that encouragement occasionally required a threat. I wrote back, "How do you know I'm outside?" "Because I know you. Also, I saw your truck." A second message arrived. "You did not spend 8 years rebuilding your life just to hide from one ballroom." She was right, so I went inside. The room was exactly what I expected. Golden chandelier light fell over round tables covered with white linen. A jazz trio played near the bar. Enlarged yearbook photographs stood on easels beside a banner displaying our graduating year. Everyone wore name tags that included an old photograph, which meant we spent the evening comparing 43-year-old faces to 18-year-old promises. Angela found me near the registration table. "You made it," she said, hugging me. "Barely. Did you practice an escape route?" "Too." She laughed and straightened the lapel of my navy suit. I had deliberately chosen something simple. No designer label. No jewelry except my wedding band and the steel watch that had belonged to my father. "You look good," Angela said. "I look like I came directly from a zoning meeting." "That is because you did." She handed me a cup of coffee. "Remember why you are here. You told me it was to close a door." "It is. Not to impress Katie. Not to correct every person who underestimated you. Just to walk into the room as the man you are now." "I know. Do you?" "I am working on it." Angela squeezed my shoulder and left to greet another classmate. I had been inside for fewer than 10 minutes when I heard Katie's voice. "Look at him." I recognized the tone before I recognized the words. 25 years later, and Peter Rush still looks like a man who pours concrete for a living. Her friends laughed. I stirred my coffee once more, placed the spoon down and turned. Katie stood beside a table with 3 women from our graduating class. She wore a silver dress and held a champagne glass with the relaxed confidence of someone who had rehearsed her entrance. She looked beautiful. That was never difficult for Katie. What had changed was the way she seemed to watch other people watching her. Her eyes traveled over my suit, shoes, and watch. She was not seeing me. She was checking whether I still fit the story she had been telling herself. "Hello, Katie." "Peter," she replied, drawing out my name. I did not know you were coming. Neither did I until about 11 minutes ago. One of her friends laughed, but Katie did not. Still in construction? I am. It was true. A river is still involved in water, even when it has become powerful enough to reshape a city. Katie smiled. I always admired your consistency. The sentence sounded generous until you heard what she had placed inside it. To her, consistency meant I had never grown. Then she lifted her left hand. The diamond was impossible to miss. I am engaged. Congratulations. For a second, she looked disappointed that I meant it. The man beside her stepped forward. He was about 47, perhaps 48, with carefully styled hair and a charcoal suit that cost enough to announce itself. His smile was polished, but his eyes remained restless. Andy Davis, he said, offering his hand. Private equity. People who lead with their profession usually want you to know the hierarchy before the conversation begins. Peter Rush. Construction, right? That is right. He shook my hand while looking at my watch. It was a 9-year-old steel-field watch with scratches near the crown. My father had worn it on job sites until the day a stroke forced him to retire. It had no impressive resale value, but I would not have exchanged it for every watch in Andy's collection. His glance moved from the watch to my wedding band. You remarried? Katie asked. I did. Her eyebrows rose. You never told me. You never asked. I did not say it harshly. I had learned that truth did not need extra force. Before Katie could answer, the energy in the room shifted. I turned toward the entrance and saw Teresa. She wore an emerald green dress and carried the black leather folder she used for client meetings. Her hair was loose over her shoulders, and there was tiredness in her eyes, but also the quiet steadiness that had first made me trust her. Teresa never entered a room trying to become its center. Rooms simply became more honest when she arrived. She came directly to me and slid her hand into mine. I am sorry I am late, she said, kissing my cheek. The meeting took longer than expected. Is your client safe? For tonight. We completed the protective order paperwork, and her sister is staying with her. Katie's expression changed. This is Teresa, I said. My wife. There was a pause. Your wife is very beautiful, Katie said. You can tell her, I replied. She is standing right here. Teresa extended her hand. It is good to meet you, Katie. Katie accepted it. Then Teresa turned to Andy. The moment she saw him, something moved across her face. It lasted less than a second, a flash of recognition followed by professional calm. I would have missed it if I had not spent years learning her silences. Andy Davis, he said. Teresa Rush. When their hands touched, Teresa's fingers tightened around mine. Not enough for anyone else to notice. Enough for me to understand that something was wrong. Andy looked past her almost immediately, searching the room for someone he considered more important. He did not know Teresa had spent 11 years investigating banking compliance violations before founding the Ashford Center, a nonprofit that helped women recover from domestic abuse and financial exploitation. He did not know two women had recently brought her nearly identical stories about a man who moved quickly, promised love, and then persuaded them to invest their divorce settlements. Most importantly, he did not know Teresa never ignored a pattern. Part 2. What Katie left behind. Katie and I met when we were 19. We worked at a hardware store near Cascade Road during the summer. She operated the register in the air-conditioned front of the building. I stacked lumber in the yard under the Georgia sun. She used to hide cold soda behind the cleaning supplies and bring it to me during her break. I saved pieces of cedar and pine for the birdhouses she sold at a weekend market. Her laugh was different then. It came from somewhere unguarded. I fell in love with that laugh. We married at 21 in her aunt's church. There were 62 guests, folding chairs in the fellowship hall, and enough homemade sweet tea to supply a football stadium. We had very little money and did not feel poor. Our daughter, Maya, arrived 4 years later. For a long time, we were happy. That matters. It is easy to retell a failed marriage as if every day inside it was false. But some endings are painful precisely because the beginning was real. Katie wanted a larger life. At first, I loved that ambition in her. She completed certification courses in marketing and corporate communications. I took additional construction jobs to pay the tuition. When we needed another semester's fees, I sold the framing tools my grandfather had left me. They were high-quality steel tools that had passed through 3 generations. I never told Katie what I had sold. At the time, I believed love meant preventing the person beside you from feeling the cost of your sacrifice. I understand now that hidden sacrifices can become hidden resentments, even when nobody intends them to. Healthy love requires generosity, but it also requires honesty. If only one person knows what the relationship costs, the other person cannot understand what is being carried. 2 years later, I was offered a foreman position in Tennessee. The salary would have changed our finances overnight. Katie's sister was struggling with depression, and Katie did not want to leave Atlanta. I declined the promotion. Again, I told myself I had made the choice freely. In one sense, I had. In another, I had begun confusing devotion with disappearance. Katie's career improved, but her restlessness grew. Every achievement seemed to satisfy her for about 2 weeks. Then someone else bought a larger home, traveled somewhere more exotic, or received a better title. Our house was never quite impressive enough. My work clothes embarrassed her. My pickup truck was always due for replacement, even when it ran perfectly. "You could be more," she told me one evening. "I am trying to be better every day." That is not what I mean. I knew it was not. She wanted visible success. I wanted useful work. Neither desire was automatically wrong. The problem was that we stopped respecting what the other person valued. I discovered her affair through a hotel receipt left inside a coat pocket. She admitted it when I confronted her. Then she cried and said it had ended. I stayed. I stayed because Maya was young. I stayed because 14 years seemed too important to discard. I stayed because I thought loyalty could compensate for lost trust. Mostly, I stayed because I was frightened that leaving would mean I had failed. That is another lesson I learned too late. Preserving the appearance of a relationship is not the same as saving it. A year later, on a Tuesday morning, Katie packed 2 suitcases. She had already rented an apartment. She stood beside the front door and waited for me to respond. "Say something," she said. I wanted to ask whether I had ever been enough. Instead, I said, "Drive safely. Call when you arrive." She left. I did not chase her car. I stood in the kitchen until the refrigerator motor clicked off and the silence became complete. Some people think silence means a person is defeated. Sometimes silence is simply the sound of a foundation being inspected before rebuilding begins. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. Katie accepted a job in Charlotte and moved away. Maya divided her time between us until high school, when she asked to remain in Atlanta. To Katie's credit, she never used Maya as a weapon. Our marriage had failed, but we both agreed our daughter did not have to fail with it. The first year after the divorce was the hardest. I woke at 4:30 each morning and worked until there was no energy left for memory. I accepted small renovation contracts no one else wanted, community centers, aging schools, neighborhood clinics, and storm-damaged homes. I learned how to estimate, negotiate, and manage risk. I also learned how many neighborhoods were being rebuilt without the people who lived in them receiving any benefit. That became the beginning of Rush Civic Development. My company hired locally, trained apprentices, and reserved a percentage of every public project for paid trade education. We grew slowly because I refused contracts that required cutting safety or exploiting subcontractors. After 5 years, slowly had become substantial. We renovated schools across 3 counties. We restored an abandoned recreation center near the neighborhood where my father grew up. We developed mixed-income housing while guaranteeing that long-time residents would not be displaced by sudden rent increases. The company became profitable. Then it became very profitable. I did not buy a mansion. I repaired the roof on my existing house. I did not replace my father's watch. I used the money to establish the Robert Rush Memorial Fund, named after him. It awarded scholarships to students entering engineering, architecture, and skilled trade programs. My father had spent his life building structures other people placed their names on. I wanted his name attached to opportunity. I met Teresa during the renovation of a daycare facility. She arrived to review compliance concerns connected to the project and found that my crew had installed a dust barrier incorrectly. I tried to explain that we were replacing it after lunch. She folded her arms. The children breathed before lunch too. We fixed it immediately. I liked her before she liked me. We became friends, then slowly became something else. Teresa had survived a marriage in which her former husband controlled every dollar, opened accounts in her name, and left her with debts she had never authorized. She understood that financial abuse rarely begins with stolen money. It begins when one person convinces another that asking questions is disloyal. She did not need me to rescue her. I did not need her to admire me. We paid attention to each other instead. We married 3 years before the reunion in a small ceremony beneath oak trees. Maya stood beside us. By then, I no longer needed Katie to regret leaving. That was why her joke in the ballroom did not wound me the way she expected. She was laughing at a man who no longer existed. Part 3. Teresa recognizes a pattern after meeting Andy. Teresa remained courteous. She asked Katie how long they had known each other. Almost 6 weeks, Katie said. And you are already engaged? Katie lifted her chin. When you know, you know. Andy placed his hand at the small of her back. Some opportunities disappear if you spend too much time analyzing them. Teresa's expression stayed pleasant. That is certainly one philosophy. I almost smiled. Teresa believed urgency was one of the most useful tools a manipulator possessed. Whether the subject was love, money, or legal authority, pressure prevented people from checking the facts. How did you meet? She asked. At a charity event, Katie said. Andy manages an infrastructure investment fund. He is opening a new opportunity to a few private investors. Andy glanced at me. Actually, Peter, construction professionals sometimes understand these assets better than financial people do. We should talk. Minutes earlier, he had treated me as though I poured concrete because I lacked imagination. Now he saw potential money. I do not make investment decisions at reunions, I said. Andy laughed. Smart man. Still, the early position closes soon. Then I am comfortable missing it. Something hardened behind his smile. Teresa's phone vibrated. She checked the screen, then touched my arm. I need to return a client call. We stepped into the corridor together. Do you know him? I asked. Not personally, but you recognize him. I think he may be connected to 2 client files. What kind of files? Romance-based financial fraud. I looked through the ballroom doors. Katie was showing her ring to another group, while Andy spoke to a classmate near the bar. How certain are you? Not certain enough to accuse him. Certain enough to verify. Should we warn Katie? Not yet. A public accusation without evidence could cause him to disappear, destroy records, or isolate her from anyone who questions him. The answer was disciplined, but I could hear the concern beneath it. What do you need? A clear photograph and his full name. Then I called Detective Alvarez. Angela has been taking pictures all evening. Ask her to preserve them. Do not tell anyone why. That was when the microphone sounded. Carla Simmons, chair of the reunion committee, stood on the small stage. Before dinner begins, I need everyone's attention. The conversations faded. Carla looked directly at me. My stomach tightened. She and I had agreed my contribution would remain anonymous. I was asked not to reveal what I am about to tell you, she said. But after hearing a few conversations tonight, I have decided that gratitude matters more than secrecy. Several people turned toward Katie's table. Carla continued. This reunion was fully funded by one member of our graduating class. The ballroom, dinner, music, and scholarship raffle were all covered so every classmate could attend, regardless of their circumstances. I shook my head slightly, asking her not to continue. She ignored me. That person is Peter Rush. The applause began before I could react. Carla raised one hand. There is more. Peter's company restored the Douglas Drive Recreation Center after the city had scheduled it for closure. His foundation has funded 40 scholarships for students entering engineering and skilled trades. He did all of this without asking for recognition. People stood. I wished they would sit down. A former classmate approached and shook my hand. Another thanked me because her nephew attended the restored recreation center. Someone else said his daughter had received one of the scholarships. Across the room, Katie stared at me. Her face changed slowly as years of assumptions collapsed at once. You paid for all of this? She asked when the applause finally eased. I helped. All of it. The committee did the work. I covered the cost. And the recreation center? My company completed it. You own the company? I founded it. She looked toward Andy, perhaps seeking a reaction. His expression was not embarrassment. It was calculation. That concerned me more. Why did you never tell anyone? Katie asked. The people who needed to know already knew. You let me stand here and make a fool of myself. I did not ask you to insult me. Her champagne glass lowered. I could have listed everything I had achieved after she left. I could have reminded the room of every sacrifice she had dismissed. For one dangerous second, I wanted to. Then I remembered my grandmother sitting on her porch in East Point. She raised 6 children on a cafeteria worker's salary. Whenever one of us complained about being underestimated, she said, Do not interrupt people while they are revealing themselves. Listen carefully. Then decide what kind of person you intend to be. Katie had revealed herself. Now it was my turn to choose. I did not come here to embarrass you, I said. She looked away. Andy moved closer to me. Peter, we truly should discuss my fund. Municipal infrastructure is our strongest portfolio. Teresa stepped between us with perfect politeness. My husband said he was not interested. Andy's eyes settled on her. I believe Peter can speak for himself. He already did. For the first time, his smile disappeared. Teresa watched him for another moment and then walked into the corridor. She sent one message to Detective Elena Alvarez. I may have identified the man from the Hart and Coleman complaints. He is at the Regency Hotel using the name Andy Davis. I will send a photograph and statement tomorrow. The reunion continued, but the night had changed. Katie became quiet. Andy became attentive. Teresa became watchful. I understood then that the public revelation about my career was not the evening's true turning point. The real turning point had occurred when Andy shook my wife's hand. Part 4. What success could not purchase. Teresa worked at our kitchen table for 6 hours the following morning. She placed 2 client files beside her laptop. One belonged to a recently divorced teacher named Evelyn Hart. The other belonged to Monica Coleman, whose husband had died 14 months earlier. Both women had met a man at social events. With Evelyn, he had used the name Trey Davidson. With Monica, he had called himself Andrew Dale. In both cases, he claimed to manage private investments connected to redevelopment projects. He moved quickly. Flowers arrived after the first date. Conversations about destiny began during the second week. By the 5th week, he was discussing marriage. Then came the investment opportunity. It was always confidential, always time-sensitive, always supposedly reserved for a small circle of trusted people. Evelyn transferred $78,000. Monica transferred $54,000. When they asked for official statements, the man became offended. Do you not trust me? That question had been repeated in both files. Teresa often told her clients that trustworthy people do not punish reasonable verification. A healthy partner does not demand access to retirement accounts, pressure someone to sign immediately, or treat independent advice as betrayal. Love may involve trust, but trust is not the absence of documentation. Angela sent us several photographs from the reunion. In one, Andy's face was clearly visible. Teresa placed it beside the blurred image Monica had provided. The jawline, ears, and small scar near the eyebrow matched. She forwarded everything to Detective Alvarez. By noon, investigators had confirmed that Andy Davis was not associated with the private equity firm he claimed to represent. The investment fund existed only on professionally designed documents and a recently created website. The listed office address belonged to a mailbox service. The redevelopment projects were real, but his fund had no ownership in them. He had copied public planning documents and inserted his company's logo. That detail bothered me. He had built credibility by borrowing the appearance of real work completed by other people. It was a perfect symbol of the difference between us. My success looked ordinary because it had been built from actual labor. His success looked spectacular because it had been manufactured for inspection. Detective Alvarez asked Teresa not to contact Katie until the team could secure financial records and identify other accounts. For 3 days, we waited. Waiting is difficult when someone you once loved may be in danger. Katie and I were no longer married, but she was still Maya's mother. Whatever had happened between us did not erase that fact. I called Maya. Have you spoken with your mother? This morning. What? How does she sound? Excited. She said Andy is helping her move some money into an investment before they get married. My hand tightened around the phone. How much? She did not say. Did she mention signing anything? No. Dad, what is wrong? I am not sure yet. Do not alarm her. If she says anything about transferring money, call me immediately. You are frightening me. I know. I am sorry. Teresa and I are handling it with the proper people. Maya became quiet. Is he dangerous? I do not know. For now, do not meet him alone. That afternoon, Katie called. Her tone was unusually warm. I wanted to apologize for the reunion. You do not have to do that immediately. Yes, I do. What I said was cruel. It was. I thought you would make it easier for me. An apology should be honest before it is comfortable. She exhaled. You have changed. I hope so. So have I. I did not answer. Then she said, Andy would like to meet with you. He thinks your company could participate in one of his investment vehicles. I'm not interested. You have not even reviewed it. I do not invest with people who pressure me before providing audited financial statements. Her voice sharpened. He is not pressuring you. Then declining should not bother him. You always do this. Do what? Act morally superior because you move more slowly than everyone else. Years earlier, that accusation would have made me defend myself. Now I recognized what was happening. Andy had framed caution as disrespect, and Katie was repeating his language. Katie, have you transferred money to him? The silence answered first. That is private. How much? You lost the right to question my finances when we divorced. You are correct. But you called to invite me into the same investment. That gives me the right to ask for documentation. He showed me everything. Did an independent attorney or certified financial advisor review it? I do not need Teresa teaching me to distrust the man I am marrying. This is not about Teresa. Of course it is. She recognized that I had something good, and now both of you want to prove I made another mistake. I wanted to tell her everything. Instead, I remembered Detective Alvarez's instructions. Before you transfer anything else, wait 48 hours. Why? Because any legitimate opportunity will survive independent verification. You are jealous. No, Katie. I am concerned. She ended the call. I sat at the kitchen table staring at the dark phone screen. Teresa came in and placed her hand over mine. You did what you could. It may not be enough. You cannot force someone to see a danger before they are prepared to look. What if she loses everything? Then we help her recover. But the police are moving. On Wednesday morning, 4 days after the reunion, Andy Davis was arrested outside his apartment. Investigators found 2 telephones, identification under 3 names, and banking records connected to at least 4 victims. They also found a storage unit. Inside were watches, necklaces, unopened gifts, and 5 engagement ring boxes. Some items had been purchased with money transferred by victims. Others appeared to have been reused in multiple relationships. The diamond Andy gave Katie had originally been purchased by Monica Coleman. Katie learned of the arrest from a television report. Then she called me. You destroyed him. Her voice shook with rage. Katie, you and Teresa could not let me have one good thing. This investigation began before the reunion. I saw Teresa's face when she met him. She decided immediately that he was guilty. She recognized him from client evidence. So she says. 4 women say the same thing. The financial records say the same thing. You are enjoying this. No. You expect me to believe that? After what I did to you? I do not need your pain to validate mine. She became silent. That sentence was not planned. It came from a place I had spent 8 years building. I am sorry you are hurting, I continued. But Teresa did not cause this. Andy did. Katie ended the call without responding. 2 days later, Detective Alvarez met with her. The detective showed her the transfers, false company registrations, and messages Andy had sent to other women while sleeping beside Katie. There was also a woman named Sophia Bell in Savannah. Andy had proposed to Sophia 3 months earlier. Their wedding was scheduled for October, the same month he had suggested to Katie. He had told Sophia that Katie was a wealthy potential investor he was required to court socially. He had told Katie that Sophia was a troubled former client. He had told each woman whatever preserved the reality he needed at that moment. Katie had already transferred $65,000. She had been preparing to move another $120,000 from the sale of her Charlotte condominium. The arrest occurred 1 day before the larger transfer. Teresa's decision had not destroyed Katie's future. It had saved it. Part 5. The apology that did not erase the past. Katie called me again that night. This time, there was no anger. I am sorry, she said. Her voice sounded smaller than I remembered. I said terrible things about you and Teresa. You were in shock. That does not excuse it. No, but it explains part of it. I knew you were probably telling the truth. I think I knew before the detective showed me the records. Then why did you fight us? Because if Andy was lying, then I had been wrong again. She began crying. Not dramatically. There was no performance left in it. I spent 8 years telling myself I had escaped a man with no ambition, she said. Then I walked into that reunion, believing I had finally found someone impressive. When they announced what you had done, I felt humiliated. And when Andy turned out to be a criminal, I felt as if my whole life had become evidence against my judgment. You were targeted by someone experienced at creating trust. But I made it easy. Being hopeful does not make you responsible for someone else's fraud. I ignored every warning. That is something to learn from. It is not a reason to carry his guilt. She was quiet for a long time. How can you be kind to me after what I did? Because cruelty would not return the years we lost. It would only decide what kind of man I become next. Will you tell Teresa I am sorry? Tell her yourself. What if she does not want to hear it? She will. Katie called Teresa 2 days later. I left the room because the conversation belonged to them. They spoke for almost an hour. Later, Teresa told me only that Katie had apologized and agreed to cooperate with the investigation. Teresa also connected her with an independent victim advocate, not someone employed by the Ashford Center, because Teresa wanted Katie to receive support without wondering whether personal history influenced the advice. That decision reminded me why I loved my wife. Good ethics are easiest when no personal feelings are involved. Character becomes visible when doing the right thing requires protecting someone who has just insulted you. 3 weeks later, Katie asked Maya and me to join her for lunch at a diner near her mother's house in East Point. The place had red vinyl booths and coffee that tasted exactly the same whether it had been poured 5 minutes or 5 hours earlier. Maya sat between us at first, discussing college applications fast enough to prevent silence from becoming uncomfortable. She wanted to study civil engineering. You know, there are easier ways to disappoint your parents than choosing a profession that requires advanced calculus, I told her. She rolled her eyes. You build things for a living. Yes, that is how I know. Katie laughed. For 1 second, it sounded like the laugh from the hardware store. Near the end of lunch, Maya went to request a box for the rest of her sandwich. Katie folded her hands on the table. I owe you a better apology. You already apologized. I apologized for the reunion and for blaming Teresa. I never apologized for the story I told about our marriage. I waited. I decided your work was small because it did not impress the people I wanted to impress. I treated every sacrifice you made as proof that you lacked ambition. Then I used that version of you to justify leaving. I made mistakes too. Do not rescue me from this, Peter. The word surprised me. She continued. You disappeared inside our marriage. You made sacrifices without telling me and expected me to understand their meaning. But I used your silence selfishly. I accepted what you gave, then criticized you for having less. That is fair. I do not expect forgiveness to make us friends. We share a daughter. We should try to become something respectful. Is that possible? I think respect is usually built the same way trust is built, through repeated evidence, not one emotional conversation. She nodded. I can do that. Maya returned and looked between us. Did I miss something serious? Your mother and I are attempting adulthood, I said. That sounds exhausting. It is. We all laughed. The past did not disappear in that diner. Forgiveness is not historical erasure. It is the decision to stop using history as a weapon while still remembering what it taught you. Katie and I did not reconcile romantically. There was no secret suggestion that Teresa had merely been a bridge back to my first marriage. I loved Teresa. Katie needed to rebuild a life that belonged to her rather than finding another man whose status could provide it. She began counseling. She also joined a financial recovery group for fraud victims. Eventually, she volunteered to speak with newly divorced women about the warning signs she had ignored. Her experience did not become useful because the pain was good. The pain became useful because she chose not to waste what it taught her. Part 6. What we leave standing. About a week after that lunch, Maya called me. I got a scholarship, she said. Which one? The Robert Rush Memorial Fund. I sat down. The foundation used an independent selection committee. Applicant names and identifying details were removed before essays were evaluated. I had created that rule years earlier to ensure no student could receive special treatment. I did not know Maya had applied. Dad, I am here. I searched Robert Rush. There is not much about him online. He was your great-grandfather. I thought so. He was my father's father. He worked construction most of his life. After a building collapse in the 1970s, he helped investigators identify safety failures. His testimony contributed to stronger local standards. Why did nobody tell me? He did not like talking about himself. That appears to be a family problem. I smiled. Why did you apply? My guidance counselor recommended it. The essay was about designing public infrastructure that serves neighborhoods instead of dividing them. That sounds like you. Then her voice changed. Did I actually win? Yes. You did not arrange it? No. The committee did not know your name. I learned you won when you told me. So this is mine. Completely. She became silent. I understood what she was asking. She wanted to know whether her achievement belonged to her or whether it was another gift from her father. It is yours, I repeated. Your family helped build the door. You walked through it yourself. That means more than you know. I think I know. After the call, I took my father's watch from my wrist and studied the scratches. Andy had looked at it and seen an inexpensive object. Katie had once looked at my profession and seen a limited man. Both had confused price with value. A price tells you what something costs at a particular moment. Value tells you what it carries forward. Weeks later, Teresa and I stood on our back porch beneath a pale Atlanta sky. She wore an old cardigan I had attempted to replace twice. She brought me a fresh cup of coffee, even though the first one was still in my hand. You know I already have coffee. That cup is cold. It is still coffee. A cold cup is a reminder to slow down. That sounds like something printed on an overpriced kitchen sign. It should be. We could become wealthy. I thought we already were. She leaned against my shoulder. For a while, we watched the wind move through the oak trees. Do you regret filing the report that night? I asked. No, not even knowing what it would do to Katie. Teresa thought before answering. I regret that she had to be hurt before she could see him clearly. But I would have made the same report if I had recognized him beside a stranger in a grocery store. Other women needed someone to act. I know. The difficult part was not reporting him. It was resisting the temptation to feel righteous about being correct. I looked at her. That is why you are better at this work than most people. No, it is why I still have to be careful. Helping someone does not give you ownership of their lesson. We stood quietly. Angela called later that afternoon. I heard Maya received the scholarship, she said. She did. Your father would be proud. He would pretend not to be emotional, then spend 6 months telling strangers about it. Also true. I thanked her for forcing me to attend the reunion. You did not need me to force you, she said. You needed someone to remind you that you were ready. Ready for what? To walk into a room without allowing the oldest version of you to answer for the man you are now. That sentence stayed with me. For years, I thought healing meant becoming so successful that the people who dismissed me would be forced to regret it. But success could not complete that work. Applause did not heal me. Katie's shock did not heal me. Andy's arrest did not heal me. Those events only revealed what had already happened in ordinary moments. The mornings I showed up for Maya, the contracts I refused to win dishonestly, the apprentices I trained, the honest conversations Teresa and I learned to have, and the decisions I made when nobody was watching. That was the life Katie had not seen. More importantly, it was the life I had once failed to see clearly myself. The reunion did not prove my worth. It merely made my private work visible for one evening. Real victory happened long before the microphone announcement. It happened when I stopped needing Katie to believe I was enough. It happened when I chose a partner who did not measure love by appearances. It happened when I used success to build opportunities instead of using it to build a stage for myself. Katie did not lose because her classmates discovered she had underestimated me. She lost temporarily because she allowed the desire to appear successful to become more important than verifying what was true. But even she was not left in humiliation. She retained a daughter who loved her, an ex-husband who refused to gloat, and a woman she had initially viewed as an enemy, but who protected her without expecting gratitude. That was not the revenge people expected. It was better. Revenge would have made one satisfying evening. Mercy created the possibility of a healthier family. If this story spoke to you, share in the comments whether you believe Peter was right to show Katie compassion after everything that happened. Would you have forgiven her, or would you have walked away completely? Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more stories about family, betrayal, justice, and the quiet strength it takes to rebuild your life. And remember, never mistake a quiet person for a defeated one. Sometimes they are simply too busy building the life you will eventually claim they achieved overnight.